Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're just doing a little test and hopefully we are now back on the live stream and able to come back. Just waiting on a nod that says we're good to go. No, okay. Okay, we'll take a little break and give another 10 minutes for the officers to try and work out the live stream. So if people want to grab a coffee, we'll come back hopefully in about 10 minutes. Okay, colleagues, if we can come back into session now. My apologies for that. The little glitch in the technology that meant that the live stream wasn't working. So it should be absolutely fine now, so that we can continue with the meeting. We're actually still on the rolling action log. Councillor Spears asked a question regarding the timescale for the feedback. If I go to Mr. Kettrick, if you can maybe provide again what you'd said in relation to the feedback on the schools coming back, that would be helpful.
Convener, so the current situation is we are in the process of appointing the Hard FM contractor, and we're also finalising 2P arrangements for staff coming over from the current concession holders Hard FM company. We will not be in a position to finalise the budget savings until into July, because the staff have the option of coming over on their existing terms and conditions or transferring over onto the council's terms and conditions, and there would be a difference in cost associated with those. So we won't be in a position to confirm the saving until then, and the intention is that we will provide an update report on the transition to the new Hard FM provider in August.
And can I just clarify, would that be contained within the financial update, Mrs. Templeman, that saving be recorded within our projections?
Yes, particularly we'll mention it in the financial strategy in particular.
Okay, thank you.
Can I further ask then, is there a contingency plan if we don't come across?
The situation for staff is they come across, they work for us, or they continue to have their own terms and conditions. The option of them not coming over then would be redundancy for them. However, we're not aware of any members of staff who are going down that route at this stage. So it would be, if there was, it would be very nominal. And the sectors that they're in, we wouldn't have problems in recruiting additional staff. In our Hard FM provision, the companies the company that has been appointed is a large national company. So again, we've not got any concerns about them being able to resource the service that they'll be providing us.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kettrick. On that, we have.
Can I ask a question on page 16, new town hall update? Consultation and direct stakeholder engagement proposal. Has there been a great deal of concern in social media about people's concerns not being taken on board? I think the last one I read was on planning consent, where over 1,000 people raised objections and 16 agreed, and they feel aggrieved and concerned that their concerns are not being taken into consideration. Can you tell me how this will be played out? Because obviously it's fairly important.
Convener, I'm not aware of the planning application being made for the town hall. So in terms of our public consultation engagement stakeholders, we've been quite clear that the direct route to make representations to the council is through Participate Plus. We have seen lots of speculation on social media, some of which is just purely speculative. We've been quite clear with all people that we've engaged with and groups and stakeholders to influence the new town hall. It should be made through Participate Plus, and from the initial feedback we've had through Participate Plus, it does not relate to what we're seeing on social media.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on if we're content to accept the rolling action log. Okay, item 5 is a referral from the Partnership Forum in relation to a series of updating policies, and this one's on sickness absence. We'll open up for any questions first. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. Just first of all, I mean, we have, as you know, we have no amendments on this, but there are some questions. on page 65, there's reference to the passport. I wonder, it sounds like a very useful introduction, this passport, and I wonder if our officers could say a little bit more about it, how it will operate.
Okay, thank you. Colin?
Thank you, Convener. This is a proposal to try and improve the situation for employees who require adjustments because of a disability. And it's effectively a way of formalising the existing approach and to ensure that where there are reasonable adjustments that are being made for an employee, those are recorded and they are clearly available if the employee moves to a different post within the council, or indeed if just the manager happens to change, so that the discussion doesn't need to take place each time that one of those changes occurs. So that's the idea of the passport, to ensure that adjustments are portable effectively between management arrangements and between jobs.
Thank you. The other issue that I know causes concern among staff is at page 73, the reference to abatement of leave. Wonder if officers could say a wee bit more about how that operates and how this is changing from previous arrangements.
I think the first thing to say is it doesn't change the way abatement operates. Abatement is a national condition, so it's not something available to us to change through policy. It's a way in which annual leave is dealt with after a period of absence and how those two things fit together. It's all that's changing here is that there's a new guide for managers to try and allow that to be calculated more consistently across the council. It's not an easy calculation to do, and this is just to try and smooth that operation and maintain consistency across services. So it's not a change in how abatement is actually applied. It's to make the matter easier for managers and employees in that situation.
Thank you, convener.
Okay, thank you. Bailey Kerr?
Thanks, convener. It's obviously in 7.1 when it states that it's costing the council 10 million per annum regarding absence. Can I get some information offline regarding what the causes is, what areas, probably what departments, just to get a better understanding of where? Would that be okay?
Yes, I don't see a difficulty in that whatsoever. And I can give you very broad figures here just now, just for the information of the executive. We have an absence rate out with the teaching force running stubbornly at about 7%. It's something that the corporate management team has close sight on, and a closer sight than it has in the past. All service management teams review their absence levels regularly with HR colleagues, and there is good information being provided into management teams to allow the necessary action to be taken. I think the important thing to stress, though, is this is not a Falkirk Council unique issue. This is across the broader local government workforce across the country, and indeed beyond local government workforces as well. And there is, I think, a discernible increase in absence in the post-COVID period for reasons, I think, that are not entirely clear or fully understood yet. But your management team has this fully within its sight, and the necessary actions are being taken. This, I think, partly underlies the need just to make sure our absence management policies are as clear as they are, and that they're operated consistently across the council, and that's part of the aim of the updating you have before you today.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spears?
Thank you. I have 3 questions. One has been partially answered, with the absence level sitting at 7% and costing the council 10 million per annum. Can you break that down to the sort of a ballpark figure there, how many people are absent usually at one time?
I don't have
Also-
that figure available to me just now, but I'm happy to provide that to you offline in the same way as the figures requested by Bailey Kerr.
Before we take any action then to try and maintain the level of our workforce, what's the average length of time of sickness? Somebody can be really off, and if they're clearly very sick and not coming back, how long do we wait before we make any replacement to maintain the level of service we should as a council?
Again, I don't have the average figure available, but what I can say is that the biggest contributor to our higher level of absences is long-term absence. So I think Councillor Spears identifies a useful point there. This is not to do with maybe a historical perception of people just phoning in sick for a day here and there. This is around longer-term absence supported by medical certification and based on actual ill health reasons. It's something that's more common among the older groups within the workforce, and as a matter of workforce planning, we have sections of the workforce where it skews towards an older age group, and that's where you're most likely to find this medium to longer term absence. One of the issues which managers are working on is making sure that where there is longer term absence, that those aren't allowed just to linger and go on longer than they need to. And the first stage should be, how do we support the employee back to work? That's our aim. But if that isn't seen as being achievable within a reasonable time frame, then we need to make sure that we're acting within a reasonable time frame to, for instance, move people to consider for ill health retirement, or as an end point for ill health capability dismissal. But that's a last resort in this. There isn't a straightforward after X number of months that has to happen. But I think management teams are now focused on the issue of making sure that there is timely intervention and contact with employees during periods of long-term absence.
Okay, my third question is, you were speaking about back to work there. I think most people on the council now maybe work 2 days a week from home. Can we encourage people who are on sickness to work from home? It's obviously a lot easier on them than making the, well, if you rely on public transport, the almost impossible way to get into the boundary in some place.
In the end of the day, if you're either fit for work or you're not fit for work, whether that's at home or within your office or other base. But if people are discussing a phased return to work or a way of supporting someone back to work, if someone ordinarily doesn't work from home on a hybrid basis, but that's possible and can be done as a way of encouraging the employee back to work or allowing the employee back to work, that's part of the discussion a manager can look at in trying to get the employee back to work, which should be the first aim in a discussion.
So we are to look forward to you coming back to say how much of this 10 million we're going to save implementing the new direct policy update.
The aim is to reduce the level of absence. We have a target of 4%. There's a long way to get from where we are to 4%, but we should be continually working to move towards that. Thank you.
I think Mrs. Allen, you'd like to come in that one?
Convener, I think it's just worth saying that even if we do reduce absence, any reduction in the cost of that absence isn't a saving, because the cost is related to the salaries that these employees receive. So it doesn't actually then translate into a saving for us.
So you're saying in some of these positions we don't need to replace people, or I would say like people would be promoted into that temporary position, which would have a cost implication, no?
In some cases, that is indeed the case, that we wouldn't replace that person, and that will be very much determined on a case-by-case basis, and looking at the workloads, looking at whether work can be paused or delayed, depending on the level of absence as well, and what we project for that level of absence. That's less likely in frontline posts. In frontline posts, we very much do replace individuals in these cases.
Well, that has a greater implication, because if you're not putting people into these temporary positions and giving them the remuneration that they are due, then really what we're doing here.
Convener, if we do ask someone to act into a position on a temporary basis, we absolutely pay them the salary for the job.
So there is a cost implication.
There is, but my point was that your 10 million isn't a saving because it's employee salary.
So it's a very transient figure.
I think we need to be mindful, though, if someone's ill and not able to be at work, then we shouldn't be focusing on their salary and their wages. There's people behind this and very valued members of staff.
I completely agree with you, but we also are in charge and have concerns with the budget this time.
And that's exactly what this policy is there to help and support employees back to work. Councillor Redmond, you had your hand up, but I think you've put it down again. Do you still want to come in?
All my questions have been asked. I was just going to say, see when Councillor Spears, when you were talking there, I think the way your mic's set up, when you're facing the convener, we can't really hear what your mics only seem to work if you're speaking directly into them. So it was just a bit muffled there. I just thought I'd let you know. Aye, sorry. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Redmond. Councillor Nimmo.
Thanks, Convener. Just a question for Colin. Colin, you separated teachers from the rest of the council. Do you have a percentage absence figure for teachers, and why are you treating them separate?
The teaching workforce has an absence figure, which I don't have immediately in front of me, but it's below 4%. So there may be a number of reasons for that. Firstly, I mentioned the age profile of a workforce. Our teaching workforce is younger than the broader council workforce. And I think there are broader reasons in relation to, I suppose, the consequences, the immediate consequences of an absence within a school with a class to be covered, and the need for supply to be introduced. So there is a lower figure. It's higher among the SJC craft employees.
Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, Convener. Further to my colleague's question, would it be possible offline to get details about the categories and subcategories of what is defined as illness or being off work?
I think that would be reasonable. I think we can break that down into the short term, the long terms, and we have very broad categories in relation to the kind of reasons which give rise to ill health absence.
Thank you. Can I ask, as we're a constantly changing organisation, and I do agree that the guidance is very, very good. It's really helpful, but is there additional support for senior managers, particularly those that are maybe just taking on the management of staff, and making sure that they are supported and doing what can be a very difficult and challenging job in dealing with particular long-term sickness?
I can say that there has been some additional resource identified for the HR team. It's just a single person at the moment, particularly for that purpose. I think it's a recognition that it's not an easy area for managers to deal with, particularly longer term. absences, and that's the area we need to make sure that we're keeping on top of. So yes, there has been some additional support identified.
Okay, thank you for that. If there are no further questions, I'm happy to remove the report. It has been discussed at length with the trade unions, and they are content with what's being proposed. And the aim is to, wherever possible, get an employee back to work where it's appropriate to do so. And if it's not appropriate to do so, to go through a sensitive process of which is best for the employee. And that is a benefit to both us as an organisation, as a reputation as an employer, but also in managing our sickness and indeed that frontline business. So I'm happy to move the report, and will ask for Councillor Garner second. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, Convener. I'm happy to formally second.
Okay, thank you. Are we happy to agree?
Agreed.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item, and it is the Grangemouth Spatial Vision and Town Centre Master Plan, and I will ask for questions to begin with. Councillor Garner.
Thank you. I'm not sure who this one will be directed to. I'm sure Michael can answer it. Can I get clarification and some assurance from the Council Executive and for the Council Executive and the Grangemouth community regarding the section entitled Housing Regeneration, Existing and New Dwellings? This is on page 14 of the Spatial Vision and Master Plan document. Bullet point 3 refers to bringing forward new housing sites as part of disaggregating industry and the town neighbourhoods. This mentions in Shire Park and Wood Street as examples. Can we clarify that this document is not proposing any development of the Shire Park, which I assume it is not, and ensure the wording is reviewed for the final draft and preferably ahead of any community engagement?
Thank you, through your convener. Indeed, this point came up at a recent community council meeting my colleagues attended, where the report indicates in brackets in Shire Park. We will make sure that is changed. It's within the vicinity of the park, not within the park. We don't intend building any homes within Shire Park at this stage. So certainly that will be something we will rectify as we go forward with the draft plan and address the community's concerns regarding that and change that accordingly.
Thank you. Councillor Spears.
I think we could sit all day discussing this particular plan. But I have numerous questions, and the first one is, how does this comply with the open space policy? Because we're already at the limit regarding that.
Thank you. My colleagues from the forward planning team who developed the local development plans have been very much involved in the process here. We had a number of engagements with them to determine actual uses across the Grangemouth area, and that we all appreciate the importance of our green belt and our parks and open spaces. So they will have to look at how we can, as best we possibly can, protect those moving forward. I think in terms of where we see real opportunity is more in terms of the town centre, in terms of vacant retail and properties that are not in use, to bring them back into use and bring homes back into the town centre. That is a real focus of the ambitions within this vision and master plan.
I think regarding the town centre and use of properties will come up at the full council meeting probably in greater depth, because to say there's consternation in the town would be an understatement. So you say you've met with the community council. Was this a private meeting with them, or was it in an open forum?
Could I defer to my colleague Keir Stevenson, who attended that meeting? He's online.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Thanks, convener. Thanks for the question, Councillor Spears. So this was Monday night. I think it was a closed session. That was the only available slot I could get along to meet the community council. So that was a closed session at the Community Education Centre Monday night.
So will we be holding open meetings for members of the public, my constituents, I'm able to attend and express some views?
Absolutely, that is very much forms part of the consultation. We are looking to progress, subject to the agreement today, to progress that. We will have a number of open sessions with the community regarding the contents of this paper today.
Now, you're talking about you've consulted or you've had various meetings with people. Can you send privately to me, know who, but what organisations? Because I've not been consulted with. I'm the elected member of the area. It'd be nice if you seem fit to ask us to some of these meetings.
We will make sure we pick that up in the wider consultation exercise going forward. Just to say that there has been a number of consultation exercises with the Grangemouth community over the last number of years, particularly in relation to the Greener Grangemouth programme that is part of our growth deal. So in engagement with our community, a number of them have passed back. Feedback we've had is stop consulting, start doing. We want to see things happening in Grangemouth, and that's a real concern. We want to see changes happening, and we believe this master plan gives us a really strong blueprint for allowing that change to happen. But we have had a number of consultations, but as I said, this will go out to further consultation.
I'll finish on a point that was mentioned by Councillor Gardner there in Shire Park. This has caused great consternation as the frenzy in Shire Park have got a great deal of work into the area. And the green space in Grangemouth is treasured. So we need to be very careful in future that we don't cause this level of consternation in the future.
Thank you, it's noted.
Thank you, Councillor Spears. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. I wonder if you could say a bit more about the housing situation. The situation in Grangemouth is one where there is a limited amount of space available. We're seeing population decline partly because of the housing situation, the availability of. I wonder if you could say some more about how you close that circle and what proposals will be able to come forward. I know this is entirely about a consultation, but I think we have to be coming up with some ideas on which to consult.
Yeah, thank you very much through you, Convener. Certainly the plans we have proposed here in draft identify a number of areas where we believe housing opportunities could exist. Clearly that will very much depend on the market in terms of opportunities for commercial development, but also from social housing as well. So we have identified a number of areas in the document where we believe additional housing could be provided. As I said earlier, a number of those sites would be former retail offers that aren't required in the town centre of a size of Grangemouth. So there's a number of areas we've mapped out as being potential housing opportunities that will again clearly will be consulted with our community to determine how that can be achieved. There are a number of challenges within Grangemouth, as you all know, flood alleviation, coma zones, etc., because of the close proximity to the industrial nature of Grangemouth. So these will have to be considered in terms of bringing forward housing opportunities in the town centre.
Thank you.
Councillor Hannah, could I maybe just bring in Kenny Gillespie on that one as well?
Okay, certainly.
Thanks, Convener. Just to follow on from what Michael's saying, as local members may be aware, there is a community action plan, and one of the things to do that is about housing within Grangemouth. Over the past few years, we've looked at different options. We've looked at the types of properties, because it's not just about houses, it's the type. Within Grangemouth, as we're aware, it's quite a heavily flatted area, so we'll be looking at different areas of how we can maximise available ground, and that ties back into our strategic housing investment plan as well. So we fully communicate with our communities in that, Councillor Hannah. I think finally we would be looking to take anything for regeneration, make sure it's fit for purpose, put in our ship, as we're looking to do at our local town centres as well. So there's plenty of opportunities, but we need to make sure it meets our housing need demand for the area as well.
Thank you. And I was very pleased to hear it said that there's a keenness to actually have some action, not just consultation and discussion. I wonder if you could say a bit more about what kind of things could be done within a reasonable time scale. What kind of things would be achievable given the council's financial situation?
Thank you. That's certainly a challenging question. We have been looking at engaging with members of the community who are seeing that the retail complex is looking very tired and lots of vacancies. How do we work with them to ensure we bring more businesses into our town centre? How do we look at some vacant premises that could be reused or demolished and rebuilt for housing, for example? So we haven't got that definitive list yet of kind of early wins, but we are working very closely with CVS, for example, looking at opportunities where we can have some quick wins, and we'll be looking to bring that forward as part of this plan once it comes into its final version, to see what areas we believe there could be some quick wins, but recognising the financial challenges we are facing.
Thank you. Look forward to the final version.
Okay, I've got Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, Convener. How much has this document cost to produce so far, and how much will it cost to produce the next steps of the document?
Thank you. Could I defer to Keir, who holds the budget for this?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Bundy. So it's always wary of commercial sensitivity, but the document is in the region of £70,000 for the consultancy report to this stage. So the community consultation and the finalised document, that's caught within that fee. But if there's any other elements to that, I'll share that with elected members as the project progresses.
Thanks, Keir, for that answer. Next question is, how much council staff time has been spent preparing this document, and how much will be spent preparing the document at the next step?
Yeah, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, I don't have a figure to hand, Councillor Bundy, but I can certainly review the number of workshops and sessions that have taken place internally with key council colleagues and share that with you. And obviously, as we mentioned, there's an engagement exercise to be undertaken over the summer post-August, particularly in reaching a final draft, so I can project that ahead and share that with members as well.
Thanks, Keir. We've been talking about housing. I was wondering if the council knew the empty housing stock in Grangemouth, both within council, social and private housing.
Maybe Mr Gillespie might be able to take that one.
Thank you, Convener. I could come up with an answer. I said that the other day at the audit, but unfortunately I've not got that information at present, but happy to find it and provide it to committee.
Thanks, Kenny. When the final version of this document is ready, how long will it be before shovels are in the ground?
Our ambition, we have funding from UK and Scottish Government through the Grangemouth programme. Now, we would anticipate that we'd be spending some of that money next year, and this master plan relates directly to that, so that they are kind of combined in terms of making sure that we are doing activities related to the master plan. So we would expect to see some shovels in the ground next year. At what scale is still to be determined.
Thanks, Michael. And my final question is regarding the conclusion of the master plan draft, and it reads, Grangemouth stands at a pivotal moment with coordinated leadership, empowered communities and a shared commitment to inclusive and sustainable development. The vision set out in this master plan can become a lived reality. The next steps must be bold yet practical, balancing ambition with a pragmatic focus on deliverability and lasting impact. End of quote. Do you really need a 70-page document to come to that conclusion?
I think our view as officers, it's important to set out the process we went through, the key findings we had through the early consultation of the report to identify the key areas we want to focus on. I think we did require a bit more detail than one paragraph to help members understand the process we're going through and the importance of a a vision and master plan for your a really important town centre.
I think the point I meant was that could have been written before the document. The conclusion should be what we've learned from the document.
Not quite sure I understand the logic.
I think Mr. Binney wants to come in there.
Thank you, convener. My view would be we've been through the master planning process twice. Well, certainly with the Falkirk Town Centre. Committee has approved the process as well with the Bowness. So there's quite an established routine to this in that you get expert consultancy to come up with a concept and a vision, and then we go out and engage with the community about that and then bring back that kind of forward-thinking approach. So it feels a bit premature for us to be critical of the document in front of us when we haven't been out to even consult. But I thought that there was a stated kind of commitment from the council to progress with master planning. If that's something that isn't, then I'd be really keen to hear about it, and then we'll change our tack. But my understanding from previous reports that we brought is that there's a general support to the principle, because these master planning exercises gives us the jigsaw by which we can then bring forward investment opportunities and proposals.
I think Mr. Stevenson also wants to come in on that. Yeah.
Sorry, thanks, convener. No, that was the point that Malcolm mentioned lastly there, that this document should really engender that support from all public partners as well as private sector and a third sector within an agreed plan that's been consulted on widely. So that should attract external funding as well as gives a guide as how we'll invest in the area in the future. So I suppose that's the real power in this document. I would take the point about the final paragraph, but we can work on that as part of the draft and when we're bringing the final version back. But I would say, as Malcolm said, that's the power, is to guide future investment in the right areas in Grangemouth in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Nimmo.
Thanks, convener. Can I just say that I also raised issues regarding Shire Park officers as well after speaking to the chair of the Grangemouth Community Council. First question is in relation to one of Councillor Bundy's questions as well. This is obviously a 2045 vision. The Grangemouth can't wait another 20 years before building work starts. I know, Michael, you said that there was work due to start next year. Do we have a list of projects that we're going to be starting next year?
To you, convener. Through the Grangemouth and Falkirk and Grangemouth growth deal, we have a number of interventions, whether that's the Art Park project, whether it's the Greener Grangemouth project. So there are a number of programmes where we will be spending money in Grangemouth going forward. We have, as you rightly pointed out, this is a 15 to 20 year vision. It sets our stall out. It gives us a blueprint for when we then go out to external funders, to government, to seek funding to move things forward. So we think this is an important step in making sure we have the ingredients for what we aspire for Grangemouth area. So there's a number of interventions we've got in line just now, but we've got, as you can see from the document, much greater ambitions which require greater funding. So this sets our stall out and gives us a strategy to help move that forward.
Thanks for that, Michael. Takes me on to my next question. This is a very detailed document, 57 pages, but the document provides very few dates in relation to what's being proposed. Now, the document mentions the Fourth Green Freeport as well, and the anticipated funding that we're looking for from that. I think it was around about 120 million to Falkirk Council regarding the non-domestic rates. I wonder if Malcolm could maybe update us after the board meeting yesterday as to where we actually are, because I think timescales are going to be dragging on quite a bit.
Through you, convener. I wouldn't want to be specific to elected members about the exact date that we will start to benefit. We've always been clear that the Fourth Green Freeport is a major project which will have complexity. My view is that the document alludes to future potential investment that could come from it, which is an absolute win for Grangemouth. I'm happy to come back to committee with a more detailed update on the Fourth Green Freeport if you wish.
I think that would be helpful, Malcolm. My third question, convener, is in relation to the Grangemouth Flood Protection Scheme. Do we have a start date for this project yet? I know it's been broken into sections, but again, there's no date for this starting, as far as I'm aware.
Through you, convener. Yep, there is no definitive date, but we do have a report scheduled to come before committee in the autumn, and it would be our hope that we're in a position in budget to commit Falkirk Council's share of that first project. And obviously discussions are ongoing with the Scottish Government to ensure their share of that match funding. I said before, I don't think we've ever been in a more positive place with this particular project, but it is a major piece of infrastructure which will require Scottish Government backing.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Convener.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions I just wanted to ask and to finish off this part. Michael, ultimately the town centre master planning is not something that is going to be delivered solely by Falkirk Council. Therefore, I just wanted you to say something about who else might be involved within helping deliver that.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to raise. We have engagement with the likes of Scottish Canals, with Ports, with INEOS, with the industry and industry players in and around the town centre itself. So, yeah, this consultation needs to include, and it will include, all partners we believe have an interest in the Grangemouth area. So we'll make sure that is taken on board. But we do have good relationships with a number of key stakeholders in the town centre.
And I know that people are concerned by the timescale 2045. In your experience and just thinking about up and down the country, the timescales for delivering on master plans, you maybe make a comment about that.
These things can take generations. They can take decades to bring forward. There are a number of factors. Funding is a significant factor here. So yeah, I think these plans do tend to take a number of decades, frankly, to bring to fruition. But obviously, our objective as officers is to accelerate as much of that as possible and bring forward as much investment into the town centre as we possibly can through this master plan. And this gives us a tremendous blueprint to attract funding for that very purpose.
And finally, by going through the consultation process with the wider public, particularly of Grangemouth, will that help us perhaps identify aspects that will be a priority for the community that we then look to enable that focus first and then look at potentially planning of other aspects of that going forward?
Yeah, our experience is our community are very vocal in terms of what they wish to see happen within their town centre. So absolutely, that's a key part of this exercise to determine what are their priorities, what the areas we can and can fulfil for them through this master plan process.
Well, I said that was my last question. This is my final question. Is in order to make the change that we really need to make in Grangemouth, as in other towns, some big infrastructure change is needed in order to get the best possible outcomes, and that in itself can take time to plan. I think a case in point is the replacement town hall in Falkirk, but I think again it's about being able to temper expectations, but believe that the big items that we need to do to get the effect of change, it will take time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll see within the draft version of the master plan, we have some expectations about, Grangemouth Municipal Building, the Grangemouth Town Hall. How can we as a public sector, what interventions could we bring forward that can support and help the developments within the town centre? So the areas behind, in particular behind the Grangemouth Municipal Centre, we're looking at working with the NHS, other opportunities to bring more activities into the town centre of that nature. So yeah, every opportunity we will look at as we move forward.
Thanks, Michael. Malcolm, you wanted to come back?
Thank you, convener. I just wanted to sort of pick up the point that officers work to budget. So, if in February elected members identified a £30 million capital investment project for Grangemouth, officers would then set about coming up with ideas about how to deliver that. But we have to work within the available funds that we have. What I think the power of this document is that it creates like I said, the jigsaw. So elected members will have heard that I've said previously I'm keen to see a public archive hopefully come to Grangemouth. Now, what you don't want to do is just invest slightly randomly in a building and then have the community come back afterwards and go, there's no connectivity to this. What's the plan? How did you think this was going to work? Whereas by creating a master plan that identifies maybe where that sort of cultural activity might happen, then when you bring forward the investment, it's in a kind of considered, planned way, which actually should maximize the potential that comes from that investment. But be in no doubt, my officers have ideas that we would like to bring forward for how we would regenerate Grangemouth, and the very fact that we're bringing this report forward shows that we're committed and up for the challenge of improving the community.
Thank you, Malcolm. Councillor Redmond.
Thanks. The first question I had was, I've asked this a key earlier on, but it was how will you engage with landlords and then even absentee landlords to try and get properties back into use, and what role will they play in this consultation process?
Keir, could you take that one?
Yeah, thanks, convener. Thanks, Councillor Redmond. So, yeah, I think it's been mentioned. This is a master plan, but this isn't just a master plan for the council to deliver. It's our wider public sector partners, third sector, but the private sector as well. So, we would see this as a blueprint to engage with landlords and local businesses to work towards that vision that we've identified here. So, yeah, you mentioned absent landlords. That's always a challenging thing to do, but we'll work across Business Gateway, our other partners at Federation of Small Businesses, the Chamber, to make sure we engage as effectively as possible with landlords and local businesses to get their input into this final report, but also as we go on as part of the implementation and delivery of the recommendations that do finally come out of the master plan. So yeah, it's key to that is the engagement with those as you identify, Councillor Redmond.
Perfect, thanks. The other question I had was, what sort of external funding do we think we could tap into for the various projects that could come forward as part of this? And maybe just a bit on the back of some of the questions that have been raised, if we didn't have this consultation and we didn't have this report, would we be able to tap into that external funding? Would that be a barrier?
Yeah, thank you through you, convener. You're absolutely right. This is one of the key purposes of a document of this nature. When governments come knocking at your door to say that they're bringing forward UK shared prosperity funding, levelling up funding, growth deal funding, you need to have projects and ideas and to take forward. So this document will be really key for when those opportunities do arise. But that's very much determined by central government and local government also. So yeah, this is key to make sure we can secure the necessary funding to make the changes this vision sets out.
I think he's got his hand up. I've got our question. I don't know if he wants to.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, thanks, convener. No, just on top of what Michael said there, I think you'll see one of the key moves within the town centre. I think it's key move 1 is looking at regeneration of Bowness Road, and there's some significant built heritage in Bowness Road. So that would lead us into discussions with Historic Environment Scotland and the funding schemes that they have, the successor to the Conservation Area Regeneration Scheme. The government's reopened the Regeneration Capital Grant Fund as well. They've combined that with the Vacant and Derelict Land Fund. So these are just examples of funds that are there that we can access. But again, it's it's not to say that we couldn't access them, but having a document that's been agreed by council, its partners and the community just adds a great deal of power to be able to go to these organisations and strengthen any application for funding.
Perfect. I suppose final question or two questions is, it's like quite an exciting thing here. There's a lot of different opportunities. We're looking to diversify town centre as well, and you know, we've had a fair bit of success in Falkirk Town Centre with the Falkirk Delivers team. They've been able to move it away from not just a totally retail, but it's actually sort of an event space now. If you go in there, there's probably an event happening most weekends. It's driving footfall into the town centre. So I suppose one of my questions would be, could we see something similar taking place in Grangemouth, or potentially maybe the Falkirk Delivers team? Would they be involved in this to maybe have Grangemouth as another site for within their input? And could you just speak a wee bit about the opportunities for, you know, increasing tourism with this, which would, you know, obviously drive spending in the local economy, and probably how this could improve active travel and public transport? I noticed one of the things that was highlighted was the severance of the town centre from the port and the canal, what opportunities that could bring going forward if we had better public transport and active travel links. And that's all my questions.
Here, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, happy to come in on that, convener. So I think in terms of the business improvement district, you'll be aware that Falkirk Delivers, it's restricted within a specific zone, which is Falkirk Town Centre. There was previous funding, I think it was COVID related funding that enabled Falkirk Delivers to provide additional services within the district town. So that funding came to an end. So they are back within their core area in their bid zone, which provides a service to levy payers. But there's certainly nothing to say that if the businesses come together in Grangemouth and consider that they want to follow a similar model, it can be done on a more informal basis as well. But as your previous question about engaging the business community, I think that's really key to this, and that's something my team will be doing. So, and there's also the town team that colleague Jackie MacArthur's pulling together as part of the Greener Grangemouth project. They would certainly be looking at things like that. So certainly there's opportunities for a future bid or similar organisation. It would be a matter of funding if it's Falkirk Delivers, but we'd have to discuss that with them. In terms of tourism, yep, you'll see within the report it talks about access to the water side, regenerating the old port area, linking Grangemouth back to its port history, and that opens up opportunities not just for local people for health and enhancing physical activity, but also tourism opportunities as well. The archives was mentioned as well. Again, that's potential to support tourism. There's a lot of really good quality hotels in and around the Grangemouth area, so having more attractions close by would certainly improve that often. And again, improving access to local attractions like the Kelpies, etc., is a key magnet for tourism. In terms of active travel, the document does recommend this as a key move, and that's a piece of work in the transport appraisal for Grangemouth is looking at improving connectivity for active travel as well as public transport, and improving the links between our green and blue spaces within Grangemouth as well. So the topography of Grangemouth lends itself really well to cycling and wheeling, so that's a key area that's been identified as part of this report as well that we'd like to look at improving active travel. So hope I've covered everything there, Councillor Redmond, but if there's anything else.
That's brilliant. Thanks a lot. It's a very detailed answer. Look forward to this coming forward. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've had a good opportunity to ask all the questions. Councillor Spears, you've already had an opportunity to ask questions.
Yes, but the answer to the questions throw up other questions. And this is the forum where we are getting a chance to actually be included and discuss the town that I represent. If you don't wish me to do that, please stay.
Councillor Spears, there was a full briefing also made available to all members on
Well, we
this
could see
particular item.
very clearly that
Councillor
you're
Spears.
interested in the opinions of people of the Great.
Councillor Spears, I'm going to move on, and I'm going to now turn to Councillor Garner to move the report.
Thank you, convener. And obviously this is very important to members, as we've heard with the questions that have come in. It's taken about 45 minutes and there's no amendments so far, so that's quite a lengthy debate, which is good because it means it's important. This is a very positive visionary report for Grangemouth. This report provides Council Executive with sight of the draft spatial vision and town centre master plan for Grangemouth. It is the recommendation of officers to undertake a period of engagement with the community of Grangemouth and other stakeholders on the draft spatial vision and master plan before a final document is returned to the Council Executive for approval. The spatial vision and master plan for Grangemouth follows on from the similar work undertaken in Falkirk Town Centre, which was approved in 2023, and other master plans currently progressing in Camlin and Tamfer Hill and Bowness. This approach underlines the Council's commitment to the priorities of supporting stronger and healthier communities and supporting a thriving economy and green transition. The draft document, which is attached in full in Appendix 1, sets out an ambitious vision for the regeneration of the Grangemouth area over the next 15 to 20 years. As we've heard, some of that will happen a lot sooner than that. It also aims to take place the needs of the town and community at the forefront, ensure that the town can thrive alongside the port and major industries in Grangemouth as we transition. The document is structured in 3 key sections, each with its own proposals: a whole town spatial vision. This is an overarching indicative plan of the Grangemouth area, that suggests what would go where and why, highlighting key moves and themes to help guide investment towards the regeneration of the town in the coming years. I think this was the jigsaw we were alluding to earlier. A town centre master plan, an aspirational indicative plan for the phased mixed-use redevelopment of the heart of the town so that it can adjust to the current needs of local residents, visitors and workers in Grangemouth. 1 public estate analysis to identify opportunities for co-location of public sector activities across Grangemouth. This aims to improve the quality and accessibility of services to the community, but importantly not reduce provision in key neighbourhoods. I welcome this report and especially the approach to provide executive with sight of draft at this stage, given the important stage in transition Grangemouth is currently at and the numerous supporting initiatives that are taking place. I also welcome the recommendation to undertake a full and robust engagement with the community and other stakeholders and look forward to this progression and seeing a final plan return following that. I would like to thank officers, Malcolm, Michael and Keir especially, for the well-attended members' briefings that was talked about earlier, and happy to move the recommendations. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. I'm happy to formally second and just highlight that this does not approve the plan at this stage. It's only going out to consultation. Therefore, there'll be plenty of opportunities for people to input to that as that process goes forward. As there's no amendment, there is no debate, but I'll just give a very brief opportunity, and I will ask people to be very brief because we've had a very long debate on this in relation to that. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. I can be very brief. I think it's already been said we need to have plans for how the funds are going to be used, and more importantly, we need to consult locally with the community, with the businesses, with the landlords and so on. So we have no amendment and look forward to the final plan.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Or sorry, Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. I'll be brief as well. With regards to, we need to have the master plan, and it's an aspiration that we need to look forward to. As it states in 4.1, Grangemouth is the cornerstone of Scottish industry, and as a local authority we need to try and support the town of Grangemouth like we do with the rest of the areas in the council. Thanks, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Spears.
Plans are the bedrock of future, but action is what is desperately needed. And for to play things out over years and generations and somewhere down the line, and hopefully, and to say that we're going to build houses and we've not identified where and we're at the extent of a green belt, then these questions need to be asked. And people need to be involved. They need to have the chance to be involved, but they need to be listened to. Thank you.
Are we all agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Move on to item 7, and I'll just allow a second or two for Councillor Deacon to excuse himself from this item. Okay, we're now moving on to the Bonnybridge transport issues stag appraisal case for change update, and I will open it up for questions. Sorry, Councillor Redmond.
Thanks. It was just for, I suppose it's for Mr. Kettrick because he's got a bit of experience in doing this in the past, but I was wondering if you could tell us, with your experience working at West Lothian, how many train stations you were involved with there that get built?
There was, convener, there was one that was funded by the council, which was Blackridge, but there was a number of new stations that were created, Armadale, Bathgate, and then there is still one in the pipeline for Winchborough, all of which had various levels of council involvement. They were, other than Winchborough, they were all related to the reopening of the Airdrie to Bathgate railway line. So there was the case for change associated with those that Transport Scotland supported, and there was actually an Act of Parliament for the compulsory purchase of land, which went through the Scottish Government.
Thank you.
And you had mentioned that they were supported by the case for change, but Winchborough wasn't initially supported by the case for change. Could you say how Winchborough got to where it is now, where they're sort of just about to get a train station? I think so. Could you explain how Winchborough has managed to push for its train station?
I have been away from West Lothian for the past 3 years, and my understanding is that part of the challenges that Winchborough initially had was in relation to timetabling and also the funding element as to how it was going to be taken forward. But clearly there is, I think, circa 2,500 houses being built at Winchborough. There has been large-scale development at Broxburn. There has been large-scale development on the edge of Edinburgh, all of which are within the kind of 3-mile radius of Winchborough. Therefore, that has resulted in the case of change being demonstrated.
Thanks. And then moving on, sort of other questions that we asked at the briefing, but I'll just ask them publicly. What's the criteria for the case for change? Obviously, Bonnybridge isn't currently hitting the criteria, but what's the criteria that Transport Scotland are saying that Bonnybridge needs to hit in order to meet the need for a train station?
Alistair might be better to answer that one.
Thanks, convener. Councillor Redmond, I think we need to be careful what the purpose of a case for change actually is. The case for change looks at the problems and opportunities that a particular area might have, and through that demonstrates, first of all, that there's a need for some change to the transport network. The subsequent change stages of a stag appraisal, the options appraisal, the more detailed appraisal, will then look at those various options and from that select the most suitable solution. The most suitable solution may be a train station, but may be other factors such as bus services, cars, roads, freight. It could be active travel. It could be a large. There could be many options available. A train station is only one potential solution. The case for Bonnybridge is that the problems and opportunities that have been identified don't suggest there are significant transport problems in the area in general, and therefore we have not gone to the next stage that looks at those detailed appraisal, from which you may be looking at a train station and you may ultimately land on a business case that would suggest a train station was the correct solution. The stag appraisal process has many stages in it. The stage that we've done, the case for change, brings us to what's known as decision maker point 1. And at that point, we've literally hit the buffers because there is not the case for change to take any transport interventions forward. Thank you.
Thanks. Sort of following on for that. Obviously, Mr. Kettrick's previously told us that Winchborough had a significant amount of house building, which obviously put a lot of pressure on the local transport. Bonnybridge has also got in the surrounding areas up at Denny Townhouse. I think we've got about 500 odds houses coming soon. But you were saying that there needs to be basically transport issues before there's action taken. The problem needs to exist. We can't look proactively and say, how do we improve existing transport? We have to say, we need to wait to the point where there's traffic's gridlocked, there's tailbacks everywhere before we actually have that case for change to do something. That's the position of the Transport Scotland.
Through you, convener. It isn't that you wait until there's an issue. The whole point of the STAG process is looking ahead to the future to see what transport problems may come forward. The case for change that has been done many years ago included the local development plan as it stood at that time. So the new development you mentioned in the Bonnie Bridge, Banknock, Denny area was already envisaged at that time and is now being brought forward to site and being delivered. So this increase in local population has already been included in the case for change. Obviously, the council is currently going through the next iteration of the local development plan, and if that was to suggest a substantial increase in the local population, that may in itself warrant a further look at the STAG appraisal to see at some point in the future, are there likely to be transport problems that would need some sort of intervention?
Thanks. And then just kind of broadly on the transport problems, local people, myself being one of them, I feel like we do have a lot of transport problems. We've got constant tailbacks at the Bonnie Bridge toll. We've got a canal bridge, which is an absolute mess. We've got the canal road as well leading to Allendale. That's obviously, it's a bit of a dangerous road actually, probably, and there's a lot of stuff with Scottish canals. It's not really part of this. We've got, we used to have motorway access, that was taken away. We've now got Castle Carey, which has got probably the worst speed bumps in Britain, roadblocks and everything. So people, my constituents, they feel as though transport in Bonnie Bridge has been getting worse over the years since they've been there over the last 10, 20 years. We've got more cars on the road. Traffic's becoming a major issue, particularly around our schools and things as well. There can be pandemonium at St Joseph's and Antony Primary School at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. So local people feel there is a lot of transport issues. They feel that it's very difficult to get into Glasgow or get into Edinburgh. Obviously, the report says there's no transport issues. Could you kind of define a transport issue and what sort of transport issue could lead to a case for change?
Thanks, Councillor. Through you, convener. I don't think the previous STAG for change said there were no issues. It did identify some problems, but what it did say is that if any of those issues are strategic network, then there's a very clear process that needs to be taken through in order to secure the support and perhaps the funding from Transport Scotland or rail operators or others such as those. What we did identify was that access to local train stations was seen as an issue. There are works that the council are able to deliver and are taking forward in terms of active travel links between Falkirk, Denny and Bonnie Bridge. You mentioned access to the motorway network. You'll be aware that currently there are improvements being taken forward at M80 Junction 7. These are private developer funded but have been supported through our team in the council. You mentioned schools. Local primary school in Bonnie Bridge recently, well, in the last few years, had some active travel improvements to the footways, etc. So there are a number of local interventions that the council can and do take forward. They prioritised, and when funding is available, we are able to deliver those local interventions. But where there is any perception that there's a requirement to change something on the strategic road network or the strategic rail network, you very much need to go through the STAG process. And as I said before, we've got to the initial STAG for change case and not being able to demonstrate there are sufficient issues in the strategic network to take anything further forward at a strategic level.
Thank you. I really appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, convener. Councillor Redmond has covered many of the issues. I'll be fairly brief. In terms of the case for change, I've shared a report about a recent report in relation to reopening railway stations in the Aberdeen area, where the report has found that reopening Cove Station could generate £29 million in benefits to the local economy, compared to a cost of 11.7 million in terms of reopening the railway station. I know that officers haven't had an opportunity to look at that in detail, but the question I have is, in terms of the case for change, how much priority and how much has the potential benefits to the local economy been taken into account? This suggests that there can be clear local economy benefits.
Yes, at the case for change stage, there are very generic assumptions on economic benefit. Once you've identified a specific solution and what the specific project to be taken forward would be at the end of the STAG process, then there's much more robust economic analysis taken. So it's proportionate as you work your way through the STAG process. Obviously, at the early days, you do a high-level assumption on that analysis, and as you work through each of those steps, then you take that to a more detailed appraisal.
But could you clarify how much was actually taken into account in this? Sorry, convener.
Malcolm, do you want to come in on that one?
Through you, convener. I'll let Alistair come in on that specific point, but I feel with this issue there's a problem with the council's position, because the council has elected members, some of whom have voiced a desire to see a train station in Bonnybridge. And the article that you refer to is very clearly a kind of lobbying campaign to see a railway station go to Cove, and they're building a case for, well, this train station will be great. The method by which you get a train station is the case for change, and has been explained. You can't say you want a train station. That's the thing that comes out at the very end of the process, and we can't even get over the first hurdle to begin into that process. So I think personally, council can have a political desire to see a train station, but investing lots of discussions into how we win or lose the case for change, for me, is a slightly it's a bit of a rabbit hole that we're not going to ever get the answers that the council wants. So I feel elected members, if they are desiring to see a train station, can ask officers to consider some sort of lobbying exercise, but there won't be an avenue, in my opinion, or certainly not my services, that we will be in a position anytime soon to win a case for change for a train station, because the evidence or the means by which we would achieve that is not there.
Yeah, just picking up on that and reiterating what Malcolm has said. The STAG process is very, very clear that it's objective-led rather than solution-led. That's one of the 6 key principles of a STAG process. So we're not looking at those preconceived solutions. I fully appreciate and understand there's a desire in the community, and maybe with some members as well, to see the reintroduction of a train station in Bonnybridge. Obviously, it's one of those stations that was closed in the 60s. So I can fully appreciate that position, and I think having that long-term aspiration is fine. But at this stage, the evidence we have doesn't suggest that there's there's any evidence to take that case for change forward that's going to support us in getting that outcome that is desired by members and some of the local community. Picking up on the economics, there's very little done at this early stage. But as I said, more of that would fall out of the detailed appraisal. Certainly when you come to doing the outcome of the STAG process, essentially gives you your strategic outline case of your business case, and then moving into your outline business case and final business case for the project. you would be very much looking at all those specific financial costs and benefits, as you mentioned with the Aberdeen case, which will give you that robust numbers to demonstrate that there was a value for money to actually deliver that project. So that's a process that we do on a number of our capital projects anyway. But at this stage, with the level of information we have, it wouldn't be the best use of time and resources to do that detailed economic analysis on a station when that isn't the preferred, isn't the solution that we would be going for at this point in time.
Thank you. Thank you, convener.
Okay, Councillor Spears.
Thank you. Can I ask if this council still has a determination for carbon zero?
Convener, the council still has their objectives under our action plan for to get to a position in 2030 where certain types of carbon we do hope are emitted. The wider area ones, though, are reflected in changes that have been made both at UK and Scottish Government levels, where it's unlikely by those dates, 2030, that the area will be carbon neutral. But it certainly remains the council's ambition to progress as much reduction in carbon in the area as much as possible.
So excuse the pun, it's somewhere down the line. I feel sorry for Bonnybridge. They've fought very hard to try and get put back on the map and have a contact link. That's called the case for change. We have suffered from no stag update on Grangemouth station. I know it's a terminal station, but it doesn't mean that the vision is dead. And as you've said, that our carbon objectives are very strong, then maybe we should put a lot more concentration and effort into trying to create an infrastructure, a transport infrastructure that suits that ambition. Thank you.
Okay, there will be a report coming forward on the transport assessment and consultation that was done in Grangemouth. So I don't think we want to go down too far that line. But Alistair?
Sorry, if I could just pick up on one point from Councillor Spears. You said a case for change, or a stag appraisal for a station in Grangemouth. It will not be a stag appraisal for a station. It will be a stag appraisal that looks at all the transport options and opportunities.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I've got Bailey Kerr. Oh, sorry, Malcolm. Beg your pardon. Malcolm wants to come in first, but then I'll come to you.
Thanks, convener. I just want to be really clear on the question of the council's ambitions around carbon zero, because we brought a report that clearly stated that the council did not have sufficient capital investment to achieve that ambition. So officers will work within the funding that we have available to deliver as many green positive changes as we can. And I think we've done some fantastic work over the last few years, but it would be an incorrect view to hold that we as a council are currently endeavouring to reach the 2030 target, because that was clearly stated that we would need an additional 70 to 80 million pounds of capital investment to do that. Very happy if councillors wish to feature that in any future budget, and we will align plans to deliver that. But as the budgets that have been served since I've been here, that's not there. We will work within the funding that we have available.
I think you'll find events might overtake you, and with the industrial closures we've seen, that will greatly help, I would imagine, our carbon emissions.
Councillor Spears,
do
you have a question? Councillor Spears, do you have a question? If you don't have a question, I'm going to move on.
Well, I've got a statement back, so I'm surely
but we're
entitled
in a stage.
Same as our
Councillor Spears, we're in the stage of questions. If you've not got a question, I'm moving on. Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, convener. Probably a question for Alistair. So just to clarify, we are at the first stage of stag appraisal, and we as a council saying we don't think it's right to take it forward to the next stage, because we don't think that is the right thing to do. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct, yes.
Probably leading on from Councillor Edmonds' question, and if he answered it in his question, I apologise, but at what stage would we say, right, things have changed now, we think it goes to the next stage? Because when you look at, it was mentioned, Winsborough was mentioned, there's a massive development going there, but when you consider Banknote, the amount of houses, Banknote, Denny, Bonnybridge, Aggs, and that Allendale and surround area, probably 10 times the amount of people there that's in Winsborough. Yet Winsborough's eventually got the train station. So what would make us be able to take it to the next stage?
Mr. Kertrick.
Convener, Bailey Care highlights that there has been development out in the west of the district. It's not been sufficient enough at this stage to demonstrate that there is a case for change. And because of the distance between the stations is a key criteria, and it's a 3-mile kind of benchmark is what is used. And I think, whilst there has been a lot of development, there hasn't been sufficient change that Transport Scotland believe justifies us then progressing with a case for change for those wider transport arrangements. So that would be the long and short of it. If there was a lot more housing, that could potentially be the catalyst for it. But I would highlight that it's not just about a station. Alistair and Malcolm have highlighted it's about transport interventions and transport improvements, which could be bus, green, and other forms.
Thanks, Paul. That's the first time I've heard anyone mention about a distance. So, is that the Camlin to Bonnybridge?
Yeah, that's a general rule. It's not hard and fast, but that is a general rule.
Right, okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, I will go to Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of this report is to update members on the Bonnybridge transport issues and associated strategic transport assessment guidance appraisal case for change, together with the most recent correspondence with Transport Scotland. As outlined in the report, there has been a previous pre-appraisal stag assessment back in 2019, and that, as part of the recommendations of the report to Council Executive at that time, was that, subject to agreement with Transport Scotland, officers would progress a stag 1 and stag 2 appraisal. The view of Transport Scotland, as we have heard, was, however, that there was not a compelling case for change to progress through further stages, and therefore the appraisals were not progressed. Falkirk Council and representatives of Transport Scotland met in July 2023, and Transport Scotland followed this up and confirmed that the Bonnybridge Case for Change report does not provide a compelling case for change. Without substantial evidence of additional problems or opportunities, they advised the Council that as the promoter, if we proceeded, then there is a high risk of spending considerable additional resources, requirements and expenditure to required with a low likelihood of demonstrating a value for money case for investment. At the executive meeting on 23rd of January 2025, the following motion in relation to Bonnybridge railway station was agreed. The officers bring forward a full updated report to Council regarding this long-term proposal, supported for over 25 years by all members, and that the members will decide on whether the support is still there once members have had an opportunity to assess all the information available and also to discuss the possibility of a public consultation. This report fulfils this required, and officers wrote to Transport Scotland, who have confirmed that their position remains the same. A copy of the correspondence is included in the appendix. The report notes officers are unaware of any projects in Scotland where a case for change was not made, which were then ultimately successful. Should councillors determine that they are dissatisfied with this situation, then there are limited options available. It is unprecedented for a council to progress further detailed stag appraisal activity without the support of Transport Scotland. Should council wish to attempt this route, it would require the next stages of the stag process where more detailed appraisal would be undertaken. An initial case for change appraisal would cost approximately £50,000 to £75,000. A stag study would then be required if there was a compelling case from the initial study and would cost in the region of £150,000. Officers would have limited ability to advise elected members on what would happen thereafter, as it would be highly unusual to progress through the options appraisal process for a project that Transport Scotland does not support. The recommendations from officers are that this process would be unsuccessful and the expenditure would demonstrate best value. Conclusion, the report clearly highlights in the view of Transport Scotland and without their support it would not be prudent to progress further appraisals activities with this associated. On that, I would like to thank officers, especially Malcolm, Alistair and Kevin, who have been involved in this for many years. I believe there is an amendment and I'm happy to accept the Labour amendment with some small change. Happy to move the report.
You wish to outline the change so that everybody's
The change is just it's making it in principle in the first line of the amendment, and also taking out the small part about Transport Scotland.
Thank you. Okay, I understand there has been discussions with Councillor Redmond, and Councillor Redmond, you wish to second? And you
Yeah.
wish to speak?
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks. I'm pleased that obviously we've managed to come to a bit of cross-party agreement on this, and I'll just read out my wee statement. So, at the heart of this amendment is something that we should unite us all across the chamber: a shared vision for better public transport for our growing communities, and a deep understanding that Bonnybridge deserves a train station, not just as a hopeful idea, but as an essential investment in our town's future. Let me be clear, we recognise the outcome of the recent stag process and the current position of Transport Scotland. But what we also say today is we are not giving up. Bonnybridge is one of the fastest growing parts of the district. New housing developments are springing up in and around the town. Young families are putting down roots, and yet we're being left behind when it comes to basic transport infrastructure. A train station in Bonnybridge would be transformational. It would open up direct links to Glasgow, Edinburgh, Stirling maybe. It would drastically reduce dependency on cars in the town, currently choked by traffic and bottlenecks. It would help people access jobs, education and services sustainably. It would boost the local economy, encouraging footfall in our town centre and making Bonnybridge a more attractive place to live, work and visit. This is not a luxury, this is not a vanity project. This is about transport justice for a community that's grown rapidly and that has been overlooked for far too long. Our amendment asks officers to keep the pressure on, to explore future opportunities in the next local development plan, because we know that transport strategies evolve, and we ask the Chief Executive to write directly to Transport Scotland's leadership, the Cabinet Secretary and our local MSPs, urging them to consider to back Bonnybridge train station. Finally, I would like to take a moment to thank Councillor Buchanan for all the hard work and dedication over many years that he's put in to campaigning to reinstate Bonnybridge railway station. His efforts have kept the issue firmly on the table, and hopefully today we can build on that momentum. If we're serious about growth, serious about net zero and serious about opportunity, then we must be serious about backing this amendment and backing Bonnybridge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There is obviously having accepted the amendment and Councillor Redmond having accepted the changes.
Can we get a copy of the amendment? That would be helpful to all members.
Okay, I'll go to Mr. Moody.
There's a paper copy coming to Councillor Spears.
That's
It's obviously
great. Can we
already
ask for
been
a
available.
recess then, while I consult with my group?
I was just going to add, it's already been distributed by email to all members of the executive. The change proposed by Councillor Garner in order to allow its acceptance into his motion is minor, as Councillor Garner has set out. It involves the insertion of the words principle of after supports and the deletion of the remainder of the sentence at section 1, and we are disappointed at the current position of Transport Scotland. So that adds to the end of the recommendations, and that consists of the motion which is before the executive. So it's a relatively minor change to what has already been circulated.
Okay, and it's been moved and seconded, and therefore there is no debate. There's no debate because it's been accepted, but there is the opportunity for members to make comment. Sorry, Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Convener. I'd just like to make a small comment there, and Councillor Redmond alluded to Councillor Buchanan there. I think it would be remiss of us not to mention Councillor Colley and indeed the local member Councillor Deacon, who's had to excuse himself from the meeting because of his involvement with the Reinstate Bonnybridge Railway Group.
Thank you for that, Councillor Garner. Okay, I'll go to Councillor Hannah.
I have nothing further to say. I'm pleased that the amendment that Councillor Redmond has put forward has been accepted, and I recognise that we cannot, the council cannot afford at this time to spend further monies on pursuing this, but I'm really pleased that we are keeping it on the table, keeping our commitment to it, and look forward to seeing the letters that are going to be put forward.
Okay, thank you. Billy Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. I'll be brief. And Councillor Garner mentioned it in his proposal that either now or in the past, all parties were in support of this railway station, and I commend all elected members, past and present, who have worked tirelessly to try and bring this forward because they felt it was right for their area. And it's just a pity that Councillor Buchanan isn't here at the executive, because, as already been stated, he has been very vocal for many years to try and get this up and running. But I'm glad that Councillor Redmond brought the proposal forward and that it's no taken away altogether. And hopefully, maybe in the future, that Transport Scotland and the council might be able to work together towards bringing reintroducing the railway station in Bonnybridge. Thank you very much, Convener.
Okay, Councillor Spears.
Thank you, Convener. We've been asked here to support a train station for Bonnybridge area. We've asked questions on...
Councillor Spears, there's no debate, so you just explain why you've not brought forward an amendment.
You're going to continually not allow me to speak.
No,
Is that your aim today?
Councillor Spears, I'm reminding you why you've been invited to speak.
Yes, and I am answering that.
There is no debate, therefore...
I'm not debating.
Well, a brief
I'm
statement.
answering your request for me to speak.
A brief statement, please.
Are you denying me that request?
If you continue in this manner, then yes, I will.
I would say to the people of Denny and Bonnybridge, they need to take their campaign and their ambition to another body, Transport Scotland. I wish them well.
Councillor Murtagh.
Thanks, Convener. I think that this is the right approach, and I'm particularly pleased to see the collaboration over the amendment and moving and seconding in that manner. I think that, as Bailey Kerr said, over many years, many councillors across the council have been supportive of this in all parties. I know former councillor Coleman also played a significant part, and I think that But what's clear to see is that actually the council and the community often speak with one voice and are the same on that. So I think keeping the option alive but not progressing at this stage is the right course of action. So I don't have an amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Therefore, we all agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. We'll get Councillor Deacon back, and I will, it's just there. So move on to item 8, which is Madison Primary School prior consideration and update report, and it will be open for questions. No, if there are no questions, then I will go to Councillor Garn.
Thank you, Convener. The report outlines the proposed contract and procurement strategy for the reinstatement of Madison Primary School. It also provides an update on the progress to date and sets out proposed actions. The proposed contract and procurement strategy recommends a direct management.
Sorry, Paul, that noise is just horrendous. Robert, can you please put your light off?
We okay now? Excellent. The report outlines the proposed contract and procurement strategy for the reinstatement of Madison Primary School. It also provides an update on progress to date and sets out proposed actions. The proposed contract and procurement strategy recommends a direct management contracting approach to deliver the new facilities. This report provides prior consideration to the Executive in line with the Council contract standing orders relative to major contracts. As we all recognise, it is important that the Council progresses the procurement of works to reinstate Madison Primary School, and as set out in the report, that can be achieved through the National Hub framework and specifically the appointment of Hub East Central. The intention is that HubCo will continue to provide strategic support services and undertake appraisals to identify works required, and then use to assess the supply chain to actually progress the reinstatement works. The use of the contract management framework approach through Hub is an established and recognised form of procurement used by many other authorities and will enable the Council to quickly secure experienced contractors and specialist advisors and continue to demonstrate a value for money. In terms of general update, as outlined in the report, since the event of Storm Ewan, Storm Ewan and the subsequent decant of pupils, substantial works have been undertaken to remove defective wall materials and undertake intrusive inspections. These investigations are being undertaken by structural engineers and specialists who, upon completion of their appraisal, will confirm the full extent of the defects and identify how these should be addressed and prepare the necessary schedule of works and outline delivery programme. This will then be exposed to the HubCo Tier 1 contracts as part of the competitive procurement process to enable an appointment to occur. In parallel to the defects identification and preparation of the work scheduled, a construction quality review has also been progressed to consider the building defects that have been discovered and how they relate to the original construction contract and warranties provided. This will then be considered in terms of potential future action. Separate to the construction quality review, separate specialist external advisors have been appointed to undertake a root cause analysis to determine how the defects that have been identified occurred and how they were not identified at the time of construction. This commission will consider the current construction project management arrangements to ensure that similar circumstances do not occur. It is noted in the report, however, that practices have moved on considerably in the construction sector and indeed within the Council since the school was constructed some 17 years ago. The works required are likely to be extensive and complex, involving the replacement of remediation of substantial elements of the building to ensure the building is safe and compliant to enable remobilisation of the school. As outlined in the report, given the extensive works, the current indicative programme is that the school will reopen to pupils in August 2026. Conclusion is noted in this report. Significant investigations and actions have been undertaken to stabilise the property and to understand the extent of the defects, and that have been identified. The appointment of Hub East Central to provide strategic support services has enabled the quick establishment of the project team and the undertaking of investigations necessary to determine the defects and to then progress the appointment of a Tier 1 contractor to progress the reinstatement what's required. Happy to move the report.
Okay, Councillor Garner, we do have an amendment on this. I don't know whether you were straight to hear the amendment or whether you wanted to comment.
No, I've seen the amendment, as I think everybody else has, and I'm happy with the amendment.
You'd be happy to incorporate that into?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. I will come to Councillor Bundy once it's been formally seconded. Councillor Sinclair.
Thanks, convener. I just want to take a brief moment to make a quick comment to thank all the staff and teachers at Madison Primary and all of the host schools for the incredible effort they've put in accommodating all of this in what is a very difficult and challenging set of circumstances for pupils, parents and staff who are impacted, but also to all the pupils and all the parents that are impacted by this as well. A massive thank you for your patience. This is a very unprecedented set of circumstances we're facing here, and it's difficult for everybody, but hopefully we're on the right track here. So I'm happy to second formally.
And are you content with the amendment, Councillor Sinclair?
Yes, I'm content with that.
That would be then incorporated in. Okay, thank you.
Can we get a copy of the amendment?
The amendment was circulated a couple of days ago, so Councillor Spears. I will go to Councillor Bundy first.
Thank you, convener. The Falkirk Conservative amendment was motivated by the fact that we believe that the council should take responsibility for what happened at Madison Primary. We know that contractors were involved in the construction and that they are the ones who were given the responsibility to build it. But ultimately, it was the council 17 years ago who had to sign off the construction and have signed off maintenance since then of the building and the maintenance checkup. So we just wanted to ensure that that responsibility has accountability, and that's why we wanted this review. And I just want to thank Paul and Ian for incorporating the amendment into the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bundy. Therefore, there's no debate, but I'll take the formal process again and go to Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, convener. And clearly the level of defects that have been discovered in this situation are dreadful, and the impact on the children and the families and the carers has been extreme. I would reiterate what Councillor Sinclair has said, to say a major thank you to the staff who have dealt with the situation in a very, very good way. I'd also thank the officers within education and police services who have kept us up to date with the detail of it. And it's for that reason that I'm confident that the situation will be dealt with appropriately. It may not have been dealt with appropriately in the past, but I think it will be now. But we're happy to support the motion with Councillor Bundy's amendment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spears.
Pleased to support the amendment now that I've received it. But I think I will join in the praise, not just for the staff, but the children who have been put through quite a difficult and trying time, and especially the parents. I would have liked to have asked questions on this, but obviously we've moved on, so I have no objections to the.
Okay. Councillor Murtagh.
Indeed, I echo everyone's remarks, and particularly in thanking as well, emphasising the host schools, the pupils there, and the teachers and parents there who I know also, having been out to visit them, are going to great lengths to make sure that those pupils are feeling included within those environments. Just to pick up on Councillor Spears' point, and I very much am grateful that there has been collaboration again, and that's been in evidence today. I think it might be useful for other members to know if amendments are accepted prior to this situation with questions, because I think that would help to, if members did have things that they wanted to raise, then it would help to know that then there wouldn't be an opportunity for debate. So it's something maybe we could have a think about when we're looking at the procedures. Thank you.
To be fair, it was very, very late, just as the meeting began, before things were agreed this morning, and just circumstances out with everybody's control.
Thank
you. Okay.
Convener, just for a quick point of information, I was assuming these amendments had been emailed out to all members of the executive. Is that correct? Yes.
Mr. Beauty?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Convener, can I also raise a point of information just for my own clarity? These amendments were emailed out to all members, but were they also made public on the Council's website in the committee information system?
That's also correct.
Thank you.
And that would have been Tuesday evening, is my understanding. Sorry, Wednesday morning. So it was 24 hours before the meeting.
So the point is that more than elected members will have been able to have the opportunity to see all the amendments in their full glory.
That's also correct, Convener.
Then I must declare my apologies that in the last 2 days I didn't get a chance to read the council website.
Councillor Murtagh.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that in terms of the point that I've made there, even though I agree, I accept that if this has been agreed at the beginning of the day or even just prior to the motion, if it's known to members that they're going to accept a motion, I think at the point where when we're asking before questions are asked, that's the point of just advising other members that that is the case, because that would mean that they would not lose their ability to potentially raise something or ask a question. So I'd be grateful for consideration of that, because that point still stands. Thank you.
We'll take that on board. Okay, therefore, are we all agreed on that item and we can move on? Okay,
Agreed.
thank you. Item 9 is prior consideration of the report of the new sport and leisure facilities, Bowness, Denny and the Braes. And I will open it up for questions. Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, Convener. Taking into account the Council's position on service concessions and wanting to put them aside for the new town hall, but also looking at the realities of the future budgets, how realistic is it, in the opinion of officers, that the final sports development could be completed by the Council?
Okay. Chief Executive will take that question.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Councillor Bundy. We do have a very challenging financial situation, there's no doubt about that. We've set that out clearly in the financial strategy and in the budget, but there is a route through to financial sustainability. I think, well, the intention is to take clear decisions on the utilisation of service concessions at the budget meeting next year, and that will be dependent on us having reached a position of financial sustainability. I think as officers, our analysis at this stage would be our ability to deliver a budget with no use of service concessions is quite significantly dependent on Scottish Government decisions around about council tax. So that will be a critical factor. So I wouldn't say that financial sustainability becomes impossible if, for example, there's a cap on council tax or a freeze, but it does become far more difficult. But I think there is a route through. We hope we can get to that position and then deliver not just on the town hall, but on the other projects we've identified for that 46 million of service concessions. Thanks, Kenneth. So if to get the council's finances to a point where we don't use any service concessions next year, how much do we need to save / raise to get to that position?
So we are working on pulling together some of the financial gap statement, but we had said previously when we presented the financial strategy that every year the council has around, we assume around a 7% council tax increase. Every year we have between roughly £7 to £8 million of new pressures. And we had, for 25-26, we agreed to use £11.5 million of service concessions, so we need to find that again. So we're talking sort of 18 to £20 million probably of pressures. We have 7%.
Thank you for that. So if we were to continue down this path and there is a council tax freeze, we could potentially be signing up to 18, 20 million pounds worth of cuts.
We would have a higher level depending on whether there was a council tax freeze, whether there was funding to offset that. Because as I say, that sort of 18 to 20 million pounds would include an assumption of 7% increase.
What I'm trying to get out is that this route does require quite significant financial savings at a higher level than what we've achieved, despite difficult decisions already being taken.
Well, I suppose the recommendation around Braes High School, there's no decision being taken on that project at this point in time, and we've been quite clear about the timing of that, and that has to link in with the budget decision. So we can't, we have been quite clear with council that we don't feel we can take any decisions on further use of service concessions until we're setting the 26-27 budget, and we're confident that we are in a more financially sustainable position. So the paper is about the contract strategies, sort of primarily for Bowness Academy and for Denny, but recognising the position with Braes. But I think the report does sort of not commit us to that Braes work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you. Can I just ask officers, please, to say a wee bit about community benefits? Now, clearly there's a community benefit in the facilities, but in terms of the procurement of the contract, what will be the arrangements to ensure that there are community benefits incorporated into the process?
Convener, each of the national frameworks that are identified have varying levels of community benefits. That could include work placements, site visits, apprenticeships, things of that kind, as well as contributions to local community groups. They do vary across them, and they vary depending on the scale of the works. But that is part of the evaluation process when we interview them and we go through it. That is actually an area that we consider.
Thank you, convener.
Thank you. Councillor Devine.
Thank you, convener. I just wanted to ask officers if there was an updated timeline for Bowness.
Convener, we've highlighted in the report autumn-winter 2026, which is an ambitious timescale given we're only appointing the contractor at the moment. We still have planning permission to obtain. However, we will be able to provide an update once we appoint the Tier 1 contractor and we analyse their programme for delivery. And we also want to make sure that that programme is compatible to minimise the disruption on the school.
Okay, thank you. No further questions. Okay, I'll go to Councillor Garner.
Thank you, convener, and thanks to Mr. Kettrick and all the officers involved in these projects as well. It's great to see them coming through at this stage. It's another very positive, ambitious report highlighting the vision and drive of this council. The report sets out the proposed contract strategy for the procurement of the delivery of the new sport and leisure facilities at Bowness Academy and Denny Town Centre, as approved by Executive in January 2025, and in addition seeks to progress appointments to support the progression of the business case for the Braes High School, which will be reported to Executive in December 2025. The proposed contract and procurement strategy recommends a direct management contracting approach to deliver the new facilities. This report provides prior consideration to the Executive in line with the Council contract standing orders relative to major contracts that we heard about in the previous one as well as the previous report. As agreed by Executive in January 2025, the new Sport and Leisure wing at Bowness Academy represents the first phase of the Council's Community Sport and Leisure Investment Programme, with an estimated cost of £4.3 million and completion programmed for October 2026. The second phase is the much needed Sport and Leisure facility for Denny, which will be located in the town centre, and very importantly supports its regeneration. The estimated cost is £5.3 million and is anticipated to be complete by midsummer 2027. In relation to the Braes, this represents the third phase of the programme due to the scale and complexity of the preferred option identified through the community consultation at the Braes. The current estimated cost is projected to be around £7.5 million and therefore at this time cannot be delivered with the approved Sport and Leisure Investment Programme budget, as we've just heard during one of the questions. It, as is previously agreed, proposed that the business case is developed and to benefit from the economies of scale with other two projects, the same direct management contracting organisation will be required to provide the specialist and technical support to enable officers to bring forward proposals later in the year. Executive will be asked to consider the business case report in December 2025, which will then enable consideration of the use of service concessions as part of the 2026-27 budget process, which are of course subject to the Council achieving a projected financial sustainable position, which we've also heard during the question from Councillor Bundy. The use of a management contract framework enables the appointment of a design team, technical advisors and Tier 1 contractors through a single organisation. This provides a higher level of integration between the design team and contractors. The management contractor has responsibility for the delivery of the project and is accountable to the procuring authority, and therefore the management burden on the Council of having to coordinate and ensure the performance of multiple companies and professionals involved in the project is reduced considerably. There are three main management contracting organisations identified, and these will be asked to submit proposals and then be interviewed to determine most advantageous appointment that can deliver to a type programme, demonstrate achievement to the budget and deliver the quality facilities demanded and also the community benefits with that as well. The new community sport and leisure facilities represent an ambitious programme to deliver top quality facilities that are accessible within our communities to improve health and well-being. If the executive approval is provided, the procurement process will commence and the appointment of anticipated to occur July, August 2025. Update reports on the projects will be provided at appropriate stages and key milestones on the delivery of the new facilities. Very happy to move this report.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Sinclair.
Yeah, content to formally second. Thank you.
Thank you for that. There are no amendments on this item, therefore no debate, but opportunities for comment. Councillor Hannah.
No amendments. I look forward to seeing progress on this as soon as possible.
Thank you. Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. I'm over the moon that the Boys Academy and the Denny projects are moving forward. It shows that we're investing in these areas. My only concern is the Brace High School extension development might be scuppered because of our financial position. I'm hoping that's not the case and that we can move forward with it, because it's not just an area for sport and recreation. It'll be an area expanding for the school, helping the school capacity, helping the local area as well. So I'm hoping that we can, in the near future, get to a position where we're able to do the procurement for Braes like we've done with Bowness and Denny. Thanks.
Thank you, Bailey Kerr. Councillor Spears.
Any developments welcome, and especially for the people in Bowness who have suffered the sad loss of the recreation centre. I know Councillor McCabe will be pleased that something is eventually happening in Denny and it's moving forward. And the progress at the Braes can only be welcomed, especially since. But I worry about competition, especially with the Pullman Sports Centre, where we're setting up sort of a conflict between people who have taken up asset realisation and will want to secure its future.
Okay, thank you. Are we therefore all agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Item 10 is the review of taxi fare scales and other charges. Firstly, I'll open up for any questions. No, no questions. Okay, Councillor Devine.
Yeah, I'll keep this short and sweet. I don't really need to say very much. It was discussed at the forum, and it was agreed that there was no appetite at this time to change from the status quo. Following this meeting, if it is agreed, we'll consult wider, and any responses will be brought back for any further consideration. Thanks, Nina.
Councillor Garner.
Happy to.
Okay, thank you. Again, I'll go round any particular comments. Councillor Hannah.
No comment. Been properly consulted.
Bailey Kerr.
No comments.
Councillor Spears. Yes, the remote.
Our emergency services, our fourth emergency service, and for this, an unchanged tariff can only be welcomed by the taxi users. And I wish our taxis all the best in a very difficult times.
Okay, thank you. Are we all agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, we move on to item 11, which is the revenue financial outturn from 24-25, and we'll move into questions. I'll ask a couple of questions to begin with. In relation to the revenue budget outturn, I note that the HRA has used less reserves than expected, and the closing level is obviously still well within the threshold. But first of all, it would be helpful to understand how those savings were made in order to be able to put anything back into the reserves, as I have no doubt that our public would want to understand how that's been achieved, particularly at times when housing is very pressured. Mr. Gillespie, you want to take that one?
Convener, are you okay?
Yep.
Right,
Yep.
Thank you. Yes, so in the main, we're able to put more into reserves due one. The loan charges have been in our favour at the finish of the year, so that's been one of the major issues. We've also looked at our vacancy management and seen how we can manage our resources better throughout the year. But as members will also be aware, we changed our voice standard to come in line with the majority of other councils, which has had a positive impact, not just about finances because we've used that money elsewhere, but also by doing that, by better management between services and that, we've been able to reduce our void turnaround from last year this year by 30 days, which also provides additional income coming in. So in the main, these are the big areas that's allowed us to be more financially prudent and been able to get more money back into our reserves. Again, just to remind members, this is again a legacy of when we had COVID, when we had the 3 years at the 2% and had growth. We always knew we were going to have to use reserves. This is just minimising the use of the reserves, and we'll continue to keep looking at ways that we can get these reserves built back up to prudent levels.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to ask Mrs. Templeman about the 2 million reserve for financial pressures and what those financial pressures might actually be.
Thank you. So we had flagged up in the 25-26 budget that there was quite a significant number of pressures or certainly unknowns that we had to prepare for. A significant part of that, which we flagged up in the budget, was around health and social care and the rising costs of delivering social care. So we had recognised in the budget that we anticipated having to provide additional one-off funding to the Health and Social Care Partnership in 25-26, and that is still the case. So that's a significant factor. Obviously, our pay award isn't settled yet. There has been some movement and some progress on that, but we aren't at the position where we have a settled position. There's inflationary pressures. We've seen that inflation is a little bit higher still, and then recently with the conflicts in the Middle East, we're seeing increase in oil prices. We've seen food prices increase. That will have an impact on schools, so that remains a pressure. We are hoping that interest rates reduce, but again, with all this uncertainty, we don't have a clear path for that. So I think those were sort of the main areas that we had flagged up in the budget report.
Thank you. My final question is in relation to the need for transformation. There's been a great focus on that, about trying to encourage the public sector to work to do things differently. And we do have the Council of the Future programme board, but how important is that going to be around helping the council to reach its financial sustainability? And I ask that because it's something that was flagged within our best value thematic report.
Thank you. I think transformation is a hugely important part of how the council evolves and changes to be able to manage its finances effectively and to improve services and to continue to meet service users' needs. Arguably, given the budget challenges that we have, the council has sort of had to transform significantly over the last few years to be able to try and meet those challenges. And we have recognised that the way we do things we have to consider all options for how we deliver services and what they look like. And we have got ambitious plans within the Council of the Future programme to look at that. And we had flagged at Audit Committee that we need to look at how we're presenting that to members and how we're presenting it in the context of the financial budget, strategy, and our financial projection reports. So I would say that transformation is increasingly challenging, but it remains a sort of fundamental part of how we are going to try and address our financial sustainability.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further questions, Councillor Spears?
Thank you. On a day where our sister council instilling us up for a motion of no confidence, can you please explain to the wider public the need for reserves, how we need reserves if we want to borrow to see us over tough times, and why reserves are there? Because some people think, and I remember in previous councils we just use the reserves, but the reserves are there for a purpose. And if you could maybe fully explain that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Spears. So the first thing I would just flag is just if anyone is sort of interested in reserves specifically, Council did agree a reserves policy as part of the budget in March. So there's a paper there that can be referred to. Reserves are a really critical part of the sort of contingency planning for services. So they have to be there. We can use them for a number of different reasons. We can use them for one-off shocks to the system. And obviously when we had COVID, having some form of reserves there to deal with any immediate pressures that hadn't been budgeted for was really important. So the first part of reserves is that sort of contingency to help with one-off shocks. The second part is potentially looking at reserves and holding them for a specific purpose. So we know that in the budget book we talk about our earmarked reserves, where we've set aside funds, but we've set it aside for a specific purpose. And quite often what we aim to do with that kind of reserve is to use it for maybe a spend to save or to invest in something that's going to deliver significant improvements to that service delivery. So, and then I suppose the third area that we have reserves is where we have funding which is ring fenced for a specific purpose that we have to carry forward to be able to spend it for that purpose. So there's, you know, as Kenny's already alluded to, so having that prudent level of reserves is a really important part of our financial planning. And just the point you make, we can't, we have to be really careful around that, and we need to have that sort of buffer in our financial positions to help deal with any shocks, mainly.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, convener. I just want to say kind of a well done to all the officers who've been involved in bringing this forward, and I really appreciate the fact that there has been some marginal improvement in terms of the position as was previously reported to us. So well done, and keep it up. Keep up the good work. Can I just ask you to say a little more about the audit review process? You mentioned that in the report, and the coming back with further reports to the council. Could you give us, just remind me please of the timescales on that?
Thank you. Is there a specific paragraph, sorry, just in terms of that audit review
No,
process?
it's within your purpose of your report, just saying you'll be bringing back a further report.
I see, sorry, thank you. So under the local government accounting regulations, we have to prepare unaudited accounts, and we have to submit them to the auditor by the 30th of June. And so the figures that you're seeing today are the figures that are in those accounts. As the auditors over the summer go through the process of reviewing how we've presented our transactions, they sample test transactions, they look at changes to accounting rules and policies and check that they've been implemented effectively. So we can't finalise our position and say that it's absolute until they've gone through that process. Then what will happen is we should, by the 30th of September, have the audited accounts, and the audited accounts will be the sort of final position. Now, in the last couple of years, there hasn't been any changes to the outturn figures through that audit process. They have made changes to the accounts, but they've been kind of presentational or asking us to maybe put some more information into them. But the figures traditionally haven't changed significantly. So I would anticipate that this will be the final figure, but we just need to caveat to say that process still has to be gone through. So the aim will be by the end of September, we will bring the audited accounts to audit committee for sign off. If there was any significant change, we would bring that back to committee through our update reports.
Thank you, convener.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I will just go on to move the report. I think it's positive that we do see an improvement against our budget for both the general and for the housing budgets. Underspends are shown on all three services, and this gives some reassurance of services taking their control of and their responsibilities seriously, and the council is working towards that financial sustainability. General fund used 16.3 million of service concessions in 23-24, and that was down from what was anticipated. HRA used less reserves than expected, as I said, with a closing balance of 2.38 million. This is still below the 5 million threshold, and that's what was referred to as having to work back towards that. And moving to 25-26, the 2 million has been set aside for the financial pressures that's already been detailed by Amanda. However, we recognise that there's much more needs to be done, and the projection report, which will come to us in August, will identify further sources of funding to offset those financial pressures reserves. The service concessions forecast balance at the end of 25-26 is 46.3 million. However, if we do want to invest the 46 that was cited in our budget, there's no choice but to make this the last year of using the service concessions for the revenue budget, and that's what we then have to work towards. And while the council hasn't agreed to the allocation, but has agreed to keep that 46 million under review, and that will come up towards members at the budget time for decision. I think it has to be recognised that a high level of savings have been achieved. 94% of those have been flagged as green have been achieved, and that is demonstrating just how closely the services are working to ensure that they deliver on the savings and within the budgets that each of the services have been given. This is our outturn report. I think it shows a positive movement in the right direction, but there's much more still to do as we go forward. But it feels as if we do have a path through to financial sustainability if we can actually make the decisions that we need to make in order to achieve that. There's benefits that will be seen by our communities. And therefore, I'm happy to move the financial outturn report as per the recommendations. Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, Convener. And I agree with you on the positivity of the improvement on the outturn statement. Obviously, with being involved with housing, I've seen the work which Mr Gillespie spoke about earlier on, and I thank them for that, because that they were really on top of that in the back end of the year and did some fantastic work. And it's, as he says, it's put a better throughput in houses, so therefore people are getting into houses quicker as well. And that was a big benefit from it. So I'm happy to second.
Okay, thank you. As is the practice, when there's no amendments, I'll go for comment. Councillor Hannah.
Nothing further to say.
Thank you. Billy Kerr.
No comment.
Councillor Spears.
I was very pleased to hear the Director of Finance explain why we need reserves, and especially that they're being kept for, as the convener says, Grangemouth flood protection.
I'm not entirely sure that's an accurate comment to make. The reserves have been kept for Grangemouth flood protection, because I think that's very separate funding streams on that. Okay, we will move on now to the capital outturn report. And again, I will open it up for questions if anybody has got in relation to the capital outturn. No. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. Let me get the right bit in front of me. And you've made a few references. There are a few references within the report to the global kind of economic situation and the possible impact. And I wonder if officers could say a little bit more about, and I know it's at this stage things are very uncertain, but the potential impact on the council's financial situation.
Thank you. So, well, I think maybe the first thing to see is a starting point is the Monetary Policy Committee for the Bank of England today voted to keep interest rates at the same rate. So that's the bank interest rate, and that's quite an interesting development. It was anticipated, but 3 people had voted for a reduction, and 6 people voted to keep it at the same rate. And I think, you know, what's important is that the bank are trying to navigate sort of inflation, which is a little bit high, and rising things like food costs. So the May figures showed that food costs were rising. We also, as I mentioned earlier, see sort of increase in oil prices. So that would normally, sort of higher inflation can lead to higher interest rates to try and sort of dampen that inflation down. However, that's sort of coupled with quite low growth in the economy at the moment. and so arguably higher interest rates would dampen growth. And I think the sort of in terms of that UK economy, the Bank of England are really trying to sort of navigate that position. Now, obviously, the US-UK trade agreement was agreed, and that's positive. But I think, given the trade uncertainties globally, that will still have an impact on the UK. So I think there's still a lot of uncertainty out there in terms of how, and then obviously the global sort of conflicts that we're seeing add to that. So I think at the moment we're in quite a tentative position. We're still expecting to see interest rates come down, which is welcome, and that will have a positive impact in the council's position, as long as those rates are sort of aligning to what we, or aligning to or less than what we've budgeted for, because we will have budgeted to see some reduction, because that's been the trajectory for a while. So I think it's just sort of, we will need to closely monitor what that looks like. And I think we've talked before when we've discussed treasury strategies that the Bank of England rate is one feature, but the UK gilt rate, which is the rate that the UK government can borrow at, that has a direct impact on the council, because our borrowing is from our long-term borrowing from the PWLB is based on that rate. And so if there is a sort of economic shock, if there is concerns about the UK economy, that makes it more expensive for the UK to borrow, and that then makes it more expensive for us to borrow. So that sort of the economic health of the UK has a really direct impact, particularly for our capital programme and for our borrowing. So I think at this stage, it still feels quite tentative. We are still expecting interest rates to reduce. We are still hopeful that inflation will reduce. And so all of that will be positive for us. But there's a lot of uncertainty around that, particularly with the sort of global political issues and also the sort of trade wars that have been ongoing.
Thank you, convener.
Any other questions, Councillor Spears?
I always say that word hopefully is overused. Interest rates reducing, prices reducing. I can't see in the present climate and the escalation in the Middle East and the tariff problems in the Americas, how this is possibly going to reduce. So we do have a contingency of hope if we have increases in our borrowing rate, and will that jeopardise any future project?
I think when we are setting our budget, when we're making our assumptions on borrowing, we are very prudent with it. So we're prudent about when we expect to borrow and also the rate that we expect to pay. So I think, and that's partly the reason why we see, for example, in 24-25, as Kenny was saying, for housing, we're seeing a bit of a benefit for them from loan charges not being as high as we expected, because we take quite a prudent approach to it. So I'm hopeful that I'm optimistic that won't be an issue for us for 25-26, but it is something that we monitor really closely, and it's something that we bring to executive as part of our quarterly finance update reports. I think we have said in our capital reports before that affordability is a key issue. If we were to see big increases in our borrowing costs or big increases in construction inflation, for example, we would need to come back to members with the programme and potentially look for adjustments to it. So that is certainly a risk. But at the moment, so we look at a range of sort of a few different economists and their projections for interest rates, and there is a sort of universal view almost that rates will come down. There's maybe a difference in views in terms of the rate, how quickly they will come down. But I think the general expectation is that rates will reduce.
That's great. I can tell my constituents she might get her shower fitted now, and I'm sure Kenny will look into it.
Okay. Are there any further questions? Councillor Neville.
Thanks, convener. Amanda, can I refer you to page 321 and the chart at the top of the page, and also the paragraph at 5.33. 24-25, we only built 100 new council houses, and yet we managed to buy back 45. Does it not make more sense to increase the buybacks because you'll get better value for money? Now, I realise that the figures at the top of the page were probably agreed in part of the budget, but you're going to get more for your money if you increase your buybacks rather than increase the new builds.
I think Kenny, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, thanks, convener. Councillor Nimmo, thank you for the question. This is very much a balancing act. We use buybacks to try and look at larger properties. We have put up, again, members' information of why we've changed the buybacks in the previous budget. The one thing that buybacks don't give us is properties that meet our new regulations, that are more adaptable, more use for disabled or infirmed. We also look to strengthen our stock. A lot of our stock is older stock, so it's making sure that we're revamping the stock that we want. We heard earlier about our buyback. We heard earlier about when we spoke about Grangemouth in different areas. We're also conscious that the type of stock that's needed is make sure that it's got front and back door where possible, and what our future housing need and demand assessments is. So it's very much a balancing act in what we do. So sometimes it's not just about bringing properties back in, it's about bringing the right properties in. It's also investing in communities where we do at times demolish old properties, Hawk Gardens being one that we've just done, or also using available land that helps build communities. So there's different things, and as always, Councillor Nimmo, I'm happy to discuss it in our meetings, any more information that you'd want.
Thanks, Kenny. Thanks, convener.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, I'll turn to the report. This is a backward look at how we've performed over the last year, and it's very pleasing to see that the update there has been a significant improvement in the progress of our capital programme, with the general fund making 94% of the budget having been delivered, and housing 91.5%, demonstrating those improvements. And I think understand that the work of the Housing and Strategic Asset Modernisation Board have been key in delivering that and having that oversight. We also see within the report that there's further improvements planned, which included changes to the support to move to the corporate landlord, and this too will hopefully bring further efficiencies and in delivering on our capital programme and managing of the projects. It's already been talked about the interest rates and the fact that it's helpful that the borrowing was lower than anticipated over the last year. So that doesn't actually mean that the council actually borrows more. It just means it costs us less to do that. And we are still going to be in a challenging time with interest rates. So therefore, short-term borrowing is going to continue to be the best option for us. As always with capital investment, the council has to strike the balance between sustaining assets so that services can be delivered and effectively and safely, and recognising the need for capital investment and the impacts on the revenue account. And that's where we have we look to use our assets best in buying vehicles, etc., because that does actually help the budget pressures. So we need to have those in order to be able to create the efficiencies within our budget. There is also, this year in particular, we have the 1.5% council tax for capital that is going to support some of the work going forward for this year, and that will be something that will be up to members to consider should be continued in the future when we go into the budget process. I think the performance of the capital programme over the last year has been very positive, and are starting to see things delivered. We just need to be able to maintain that and to develop in that for the future. I'm happy to move the report as is. Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, convener. I am obviously content to second this. and note again that this year, because I think it's a couple of years now, that we're actually spending over 90% of the capital budgets. I'm sort of looking at Councillor Kerr, and I think you'll remember in our early years when we were spending 60s and 65%. So it's good that that's been spent, and it's been spent for the benefit of the people of Falkirk.
Thank you. As there are no amendment, I'll just go for brief comments again. Councillor Hannah.
And I have no further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Bailey Kerr.
Just briefly, Convener, Councillor Bibb says over the years it's been very frustrating where the capital budget's been set and we've delivered not as much as we'd have liked, but now it looks like we're delivering what we're saying we're delivering, which is great for the council. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Spears.
Pleased to hear you welcome our budget decisions earlier in the year and that they are bearing fruit. But this fruit is a double-edged sword because there's people still waiting out there for storm damage repairs, new showers, lots of different stuff. So savings is one thing, but keeping on top of the day job is quite another.
And I just remind you, we're talking about the capital programme, not the revenue or building maintenance. Yeah. Okay. In which case we're happy to agree.
Agreed.
Okay. We're getting through the agenda. We're now at item 13, and it's the sale of Denny Townhouse. And I will open it up for any questions. No, there are no questions. Okay, I'll go to Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Convener. And before I talk to the report, can I just say how much this building means to both the community of Denny Dunnipace and indeed myself. Being born and bred in the town, some of my earliest memories are of my late mum taking me into the townhouse to pay the council rent. I can still actually see the old wooden counter and the wooden clad walls in my head. And more recently in with the gala entourage, getting their photographs taken in the marvellous staircase in front of the windows. It truly is a stunning building and one that means so much to the community. The purpose of this report is to advise on the outcome of a recent marketing campaign and seek approval for the disposal of the property Denny Townhouse to Manish Khanna and Sean Harkins for £205,250 on the terms set out in Section 5, including the offer being subject to the purchaser obtaining the necessary statutory consents for planning permission, a very important stage. As members will be aware, and as outlined in the report, the building was declared surplus, and the outcome of the common good consultation was reported to Council Executive in April 2023, where it was agreed the property would be sold on the open market. The property was then marketed. However, during the marketing period, an application for listing was submitted. This meant that the property needed to be assessed by Historic Environment Scotland, with an original timescale to complete the assessment of October 2023. However, the assessment was not completed in October 2024, and HES assigned a Category C listing to the building. Due to the uncertainty of the listing, the highest offer received at the time could not be accepted, as it was conditional on the property not being listed. The sale therefore did not proceed, and due to the uncertainty introduced by this proposed listing process, the property was not marketed until the position was clarified. Following the confirmation of the listing, the property was remarketed, and at the closing date in March, the highest offer was £225,000. However, this was based on no listing and therefore could not be accepted. The highest offer that was compliant with the marketing particulars, the council's preservation burdens and listing is the one before us today. The proposal is to subdivide the property in a minimum of 4 apartments. Solicitors acting on behalf of the proposed purchaser have confirmed proof of funds and provided information on other developments they have undertaken. The capital receipt will accrue to the Denny Common Good Fund and I'm sure will be put to good use by the community. Officers are recommending acceptance of the offer, as in addition to the significant capital receipt, the sale will remove holding and maintenance costs, currently costing around £42,000 per year, and deliver new homes. Happy to move the report and secure this much loved building.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Garner. Councillor Deacon.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to move this forward, and I'm happy to see the value of the sale going to the Denny Common Good Fund to hopefully help the people of Denny further. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. There's no amendment, but I will go to others for brief comment. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, convener. We have no amendment, but I'm happy to see that this is being progressed, and just look forward to seeing what the proposals are, and hope that the proposals will be in keeping with the historical nature of the building and the area.
Thank you. Bailey Kerr.
No comment.
Councillor Spears.
Happy memories of visiting Denny Townhouse when it was run by our housing department. I'm pleased to see we're getting a good amount of money for this building, but still quite early stages. Depends on our planning department, how things go through. But it'll be interesting to see the future and how the money has been spent for the Denny community.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murtagh.
Yeah, I'm pleased to see this going forward. I think I can appreciate and I can detect some disappointment in terms of the listing status and the additional time and perhaps value issues that bring forward. But I think that having that listed status confirmed should assist with, as Councillor Hannah has just said, making sure that whatever development does happen within the townhouse means that it's protected and it's in keeping with all this wonderful history and memory that everyone keeps mentioning. So I think that's got to be welcomed, and hopefully something will come forward which will fulfil the needs of the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Happy to agree. Okay, thank you. We now move into our final two items, and these are community asset transfers. So we move into a slightly different mode of our quasi-judicial process and responsibility of the executive. So item 14 is the community asset transfer of Newlands Community Hall, and I'll ask Mr. Kettrick just to give a short overview.
Thank you, convener. As you've noted, these are quasi-judicial papers, this one and the following one. The purpose of this report is to consider the full ownership community asset transfer of Bean Cross and Newlands Community Hall, Grangemouth to Sealock Infinity, who are a Scottish charitable incorporated organisation. The executive is to agree to the transfer of the ownership for £1, which reflects the benefits that will derive from the project. In addition to the transfer for £1, there is a proposed enablement fund of up to £200,224 to go towards improvements of the building, including energy efficiency works. Members should note that the assessments undertaken confirm that the proposals are in line with the Council's statutory obligations in terms of the Community Empowerment Scotland Act and the disposal of land by local authorities Scotland regulations. And finally, convener, we seek to instruct and authorise the Director of Police Services to issue a decision notice on the terms set out in the report and to agree and conclude all necessary legal arrangements to progress the disposal in accordance with Part 5 of the Community Empowerment Act. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kettrick. Any questions? Councillor Spears.
Thank you. I have some questions regarding this, as previously been the chairman of this hall for some 26 years. I have an affinity with it, but no longer a direct connection. So the full ownership, does that mean if this is later sold, will that money then go back into the community, or will the new owners have the full rights? I notice number 2 on 2.1 that the police services is authorised to prepare and include a condition in the decision notice allowing the council the option to require the property. If you can maybe fully explain that.
Convener, with all our asset transfers, the council has kept a right of preemption for us to basically purchase the property back. The price is on a sliding scale over a period of 10 years. It starts off at 0, and then over the period of 10 years, it goes to the market value, reflecting its use as a community facility. That then enables the community groups to reflect the benefit and invest in the asset without being exposed And the terms of that preemption are quite distinct and set out in the report, that the process for if a group becomes insolvent or anything like that, the council can intervene following Oscar's determination if they cannot get another similar group to take the property on. So there is a number of checks and balances to ensure that the property is either retained in public ownership or continues to be made for charity, for community use.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I will formally move the report as per the recommendations. Councillor Devine?
Happy to second.
Are we all agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Move on to our final item, which is community asset transfer of Loch Park Pavilion. Mr. Kertrick.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of this report is to consider the full ownership asset transfer of Loch Park Pavilion to Stein Thistles Football Club, who are a Scottish charitable incorporated organisation. Executive is asked to agree that full ownership transfer at a purchase price of £1, reflecting the benefits that will derive from the project. In addition to the transfer for £1, agreement is sought to provide enablement fund grant of up to £14,046 to support capital improvements to the facility. Members should note that assessments undertaken by officers confirm that the proposals are in line with the Council's statutory obligations in terms of the Community Empowerment Scotland Act and the disposal of land by local authorities Scotland regulations. And if agreed, to instruct and authorise the Director of Police Services to issue a decision notice and agree and conclude all necessary legal arrangements to progress the disposal. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions in relation to this particular item, the Loch Park Pavilion? Councillor Deacon?
Thank you very much. Just a small one on the appendices. And first of all, I want to say thanks to Jim Muller for getting that fixed, because there were some issues on that page. There were some reservations about parking on the street from residents on the consultation. How would that have been looked into?
The concerns that were raised by the residents were no material to the consideration of the application.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Redmond.
Just wanted to really welcome this and wish Stein Thistle all the best as they push forward. They've been working closely with Bonnybridge Football Club in this as well, so it's good to see that all this football pavilions have now been safely transferred into community ownership. So hopefully we can see a bright future ahead on what is a really good football pitch. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Billy Kerr.
Just a quick question. I've probably played at every park in Falkirk District. Where is the Loch Park Pavilion? 'Cause I've never, in case I've not heard it called that before.
It's just off
High Bonnybridge.
It's just off Park Street and near to St Helens Loch.
High Bonnybridge.
Yeah. James, I'll get it for you opposite the PV.
Aye.
Near the PV.
I know where it is, aye.
Okay, now we've had the directions. Okay, if there are no further questions, I will formally move the report. Councillor Deacon.
I would like to formally second the report, and I also want to say well done to Stein Thistle for first time since 1922 winning the Scottish Amateur Football Club for our Falkirk team. So it's long awaited and well deserved. I've seen this team for many years, from being grown up in Allendale with my gran living there and visiting and watching them when I was a wee lad, and still seeing them train when I'm driving by. So I definitely do support this and second it.
Okay, thank you on that, and I'm sure we all wish them well. Okay, everybody agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our executive today, and I thank everybody for their attendance and indeed their diligence in helping us get through things in a reasonable time. Thank you.
Thanks to convener.